Okay, so today I want to talk about 4 schools you should never work in. And if you happen to find yourself in those schools, please do not resign instantly. But I think that you should start charting your way out of such schools. Number one, any school that does not encourage continuous professional development is not a great place for an educator. And I would advise that if you happen to teach in such a school, I would advise that you should start planning on how to check out of such a system. And why is it so? I believe strongly that teachers must develop themselves continually as much as they facilitate learning. When teachers refuse to engage in professional development, even as they facilitate learning, they end up being lakes. And it gets to a point where they can't inspire or deliver as much as educators. So when you find yourself in a school that discourages continuous professional development for educators, that's not a school. That's a professional graveyard, and I don't think you should work there. Number two, it's one thing to encourage it, is another thing to intentionally invest in it. Any school that does not train you, is not worth your years as an educator. And what exactly do I mean? Most schools would encourage you, but they would never invest in it. How do you know a school that is serious about education? Schools that not only encourage their teachers, to develop themselves professionally, but also invest in them, because you don't value something or someone you are not invested in, and I say this a lot. Teachers invest in the schools they work at. You're investing your time, you're investing your emotions. Sometimes you're at home and you just remember this particular student in your class, and you stand up, you go to your study, and you are reworking your lesson plan, just to reflect adaptive learning for a particular student. That's investment. Sometimes your kids, your partner, they know that, let's give daddy some space, let's give mommy space, she's working on something, and you're at home. That's investment. So when school owners refuse to invest, and one of the best ways school leaders can invest in their teachers is to pay to fund their professional development. When you find yourself in a school that does not fund your professional development, it doesn't have to be all the time, but at least once in a while. It could be once in a session, it could be once in 2 sessions. When you find yourself in such a school, please, I'm not saying you should resign instantly, but you've got to start strategizing on how to get out of such a system. There's still a number of places that would gladly invest in you. All right. Number 3, I guess that some of you would have expected that this would be the first thing, but I really many times don't consider it as the first thing. Any school that doesn't pay you well, you shouldn't stay in such a place. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Remuneration is many times relative. And I often say this: pay attention to the student population, pay attention to the scholarship ratio of your school, and do the math yourself. Pay attention also to the tuition. I've worked in a number of schools in my 14 years in the classroom, and I have never for once checked the tuition of those schools. The reason is because at moments when I joined many of the schools, I did my best to make demands for what I thought I was worth, my career was worth as at the time. And then I did my best to constantly develop myself. So any school that is not paying you, whose remuneration is not encouragingly proportional, to to the student population, to the workload, is not a great school. And I think that you should start. Am I teaching rebellion? No. Okay. But one thing I've seen, and I tell those who care to listen, if you're a teacher and once in a while you find yourself envying practitioners in other fields, then that's not a good thing. Okay, so check your employer, check who you're working for, check how much you're being paid, check what you're being paid. Most likely you're envying practitioners in other field because you're not being remunerated encouragingly. Now, what's the last thing? Any school that allows students to disrespect teachers, I mean, students can disrespect teachers and get away with it, is not a great place for you. And please, before you crucify me, okay, I know that this sounds like I'm pro educators, not necessarily, okay, and I'm not so obsessed with the idea of being an educator that I consider every gesture from learners as an insult. No, I'm not like that. Okay. However, when you notice that a particular school does not care how students speak to the teachers, how teachers are treated by students, and in such an environment students get away with disrespect, students get away with a number of things, then it's not a great school. That's not even a great school for teenagers, and I wouldn't take my child there. All right. So someone is thinking, Mr. Lekon, what do we do? I'm going to say this. I never encourage people to resign abruptly. I have never resigned abruptly in all the places where I've worked. I always resign properly, and I always resign when I think the time's up. Okay, so what do I advise? Re-strategize, develop yourself. Okay, many times educators don't get to work in great places because those great places are also professionally demanding, and some educators have refused to develop themselves. Okay, so how do you get into such great places if your current place is not a great one? Strategize, develop yourself, pay for courses, go for courses from your own pocket, pay for it. One of the things that does to you, it helps you to demand for your true worth, when you get to the next interview venue. I hope you've learned something. Bye bye.